This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
According to Al Jazeera correspondent in Beirut, the Israeli forces carried out raids in the Rafi' mountain in the area of Iqlim Tufah and the Zahrani road south of Lebanon. The Israeli commandos also raided an area near the town of Dweir and an Ansar and the Siksakiyya bridge. The Israeli forces seized control of Talat al-Awid and took positions along the Al-Qaddisiyya Kafr al-Kila road east of the Al-Qita. Israeli warplanes conducted raid operations in various areas south of Lebanon and around the city of Tyre. Al Jazeera correspondent in Beirut confirmed that 17 Israeli soldiers have been killed in fierce battles in various parts of southern Lebanon. 3 Lebanese soldiers were killed in an Israeli raid on a Lebanese army position near Saydun.
As the fourth week of the open war in Lebanon begins, the Israeli army widened its military operations in southern Lebanon and other parts of the country in an attempt to seize more southern territories. According to Lebanese sources, the Israeli army's attempt to enter the border village of Mesa Jebel was unsuccessful. Then the Israeli army went around and attacked the village from the neighboring town of Mihabib. Raids, shelling, and fierce confrontations also took place around the border town of Ait al-Shab and in the towns of Ramesh, the 30th quarter Al-Adisi Road, and Ataybe. The Israelis are trying hard to seize control of some strategic hills overlooking the Israeli borders. Meanwhile, Hezbollah confirmed that its fighters confronted Israeli army units that were trying to infiltrate into these areas. Hezbollah also confirmed that it destroyed several Israeli tanks and inflicted casualties among Israeli soldiers. During the night, the Israeli army carried out helicopter-borne commando operations deep into Lebanon. Fierce confrontations erupted between Hezbollah fighters and Israeli commandos near the Hezbollah-run Dar al-Hikmah hospital in the city of Baalbek in the Bekaa Valley, northeast of Lebanon. The Israeli army stated that it captured 15 Hezbollah fighters during this operation. However, Hezbollah denied the Israeli allegation.
5 عناصر من حزب الله، لكن هذا الأخير نفى أن يكون أي من أعضائه قد اختطف.
The Israeli army kidnapped 5 Lebanese citizens last night. 4 of the victims were more than 50 years old. I challenge the Israeli army to show images of the victims to the world. Then we can see whether the victims were Hezbollah's high-ranking fighters or civilians who were kidnapped by the Israeli army after failing to crush the resistance.
Many Lebanese were killed and many others were wounded in this Israeli military operation. Israeli warplanes also destroyed 2 bridges north of Lebanon. Israeli raids targeted the Arka and the Ankad bridges 5 kilometers off the Syrian border.
The Israeli forces carried out a wide-scale military operation in the city of Baalbek. The outcome of this operation, 3 Lebanese were captured, 19 people were martyred, and more than 20 others were wounded. Several houses were destroyed, several roads were cut off, and many commercial institutions were targeted. The Israeli forces conducted helicopter-borne commando operations in the area. Fierce confrontations ensued near the Dar al-Hikmah hospital north of the city of Baalbek. The Israeli forces used warplanes and helicopter gunships. The Israeli army carried out extensive and simultaneous raids for long hours in the city of Baalbek and other surrounding areas. The Israelis targeted many Lebanese commercial associations and roads leading from the city of Baalbek and neighboring towns. In the aftermath of this Israeli operation in the Bekaa Valley, tension is running high. Security curfew was put into place in several areas where many roads were cut off. Meanwhile, Hezbollah denied that 3 of its fighters were captured by Israel. It also confirmed that it has injured 3 Israeli soldiers in this operation, which was carried out deep within Lebanon. This shows that the war in Lebanon is not only an open one, but it is also widening. Bassam al-Qaderi, Al Jazeera, from the outskirts of the city of Baalbek.
deadly barrage of more than 150 terrorist rockets pounded the north of the country today in the largest onslaught since the start of fighting. One man was killed and 3 others lightly injured when a Katyusha slammed into a kibbutz north of Nahariya. 2 soldiers were moderately wounded when a rocket hit near their position along the border, and scores of civilians were treated for shock today. And in the deepest penetration so far, one rocket traveled some 70 kilometers, landing harmlessly in an open area in the West Bank between Jenin and Beit Shean. We go now live to IBA's Ellie Wogelarter, who's standing by along the border between Israel and Lebanon. Ellie, what is the latest today?
Yes, Yochanan, we're standing here on the road right outside Menara. We're about 100 meters from the border. Behind me, as you can see, we have soldiers who've come back from Lebanon. They are resting, they're eating, they're repairing tanks that were hit in Lebanon. Yes, as you said, a day of heavy barrage of Katyusha rockets. 150 fell in communities across the north, including Tzfat, Akko, Tiberias, Kiryat Shmona, Malot, and Rosh Pinah. We had 12 wounded besides the person who was killed, as you said, just north of Nahariya. He was riding a bicycle on a path and was killed by shrapnel. As I drove up today from Jerusalem to the north here, I saw Tiberias, which was completely empty, except for a few people walking the street, and a couple of stores open, but no customers. And in Kiryat Shmona, everything was closed. There wasn't anyone on the street at all. The army, the chief rabbinate has advised soldiers who are fighting not to fast tonight for Tisha B'Av because they're afraid it would impair their ability to fight, and they're being told to eat. And as you mentioned also, the rocket that hit Jenin was a Syrian 302, an old model, Syrian 302 model, about 100 kilometers from Tyre, where it was believed to have been fired. Yochanan?
All right, Ellie Wogelarter, stay safe. Ellie Wogelarter reporting from the border of Lebanon and Israel. Israel's military operations in Lebanon have largely succeeded in demolishing the Hezbollah's military infrastructure. Those were the words of Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, who spoke today to foreign news agencies. Olmert stressed that Israel will continue fighting Hezbollah in South Lebanon until an international force is deployed in the area.
I think Hezbollah has been disarmed by the military operation of Israel to a large degree. That can't be measured only by the number of missiles that they still shoot. The infrastructure of Hezbollah has been entirely destroyed. The more than 700 different ground positions, command positions of Hezbollah were entirely wiped out by the Israeli army. All of the population, which is the power base of the Hezbollah in Lebanon, was displaced. They lost their properties, they lost their positions, they are bitter, they are angry at the Hezbollah. And the power structure of Lebanon itself has been divided, and the Hezbollah is now entirely isolated in Lebanon, in the Arab world, except for Iran and Syria.
Israeli ground forces have significantly strengthened their operations in Lebanon over the past 24 hours in an attempt to strike at entrenched Hezbollah terrorists. This is a record number of rockets slammed into Israel. Joining me now in the studio to discuss the ongoing conflict is retired Major General Uzi Dayan, former head of the National Security Council. General Dayan, thank you for coming in this evening. There seems to be a contradiction. Prime Minister Olmert said in the interview we heard just moments ago that the Hezbollah infrastructure had been entirely destroyed. And Vice Premier Shimon Peres said in Washington that 70 to 80% of the Katyusha rockets and the rocket launchers have been destroyed, and yet today we see a record number of rockets falling on Israel. How do we justify this?
Well, I would have settled for 80% of the infrastructure. The truth is that the Hezbollah already, or still has, I think, 3 bullets in its magazine. One is to continue to bombard, to shoot rockets on Israel. And I think that especially mid-range rockets, which is Katyusha 122 millimeters, which goes up to about 40 kilometers, they have quite amount of it, I think thousands of them. The second bullet is to get to deeper range in Israel. What we saw today north to Jenin, I think they don't have many of those rockets or missiles, but they still have some.
According to the Office of Development and Reconstruction in Lebanon, the total cost of financial and economic losses associated with the war in Lebanon has exceeded $2 billion. The figure was estimated as of last Monday. These losses include building and property damage. In addition, there are other indirect losses, which are very difficult to assess at this stage. Maha Hitet reports.
كان اللبنانيون يتحضرون لموسم سياحي وصيف واعد.
The Lebanese were gearing up for a promising summer and a good tourist season. Lebanon attracted many vacationers, including Lebanese living abroad and tourists. But what now? The Lebanese people were shocked by the Israeli aggression. On July 12, 2006, Israel carried out its vow to push Lebanon 20 years back. It seems that the Lebanese were destined to always live in fear of an uncertain future. War losses did not only come from damage to ports, bridges, and roads. Since July 12, Lebanon sustained major losses in all sectors of its economy. Prior to the war, many Lebanese were looking forward to a good summer and a tourist season that could have been better than the one they had in 2005, but they were caught off guard as the war erupted. This war, which paralyzed the country, has brought Lebanese back to square one. The total losses have not been determined yet, but initial estimates put the number in the billions of dollars. An estimated loss of $1 billion was caused by Israeli shelling of infrastructure, such as roads, bridges, ports, and airports. Financial experts Marwan Skander said the economic growth rate would have been 6%, but now it will be between -2% to 0%.
The economic growth rate in Lebanon in 2006 until the end of June was 6%. Most likely by the end of the year, it will be between -2 or -3% to 0. At zero economic growth rates, Lebanon would lose $1.4 billion. If the rate decreases to -2 or -3%, the losses will be $2 billion. These numbers include only economic losses. They do not include the destruction and damage sustained by the infrastructure.
There are also relief and displacement costs associated with losses caused by the destruction and shelling.
There are other costs associated with finding shelters and accommodations for those who were displaced and forced to leave their homes and villages. We should estimate the time that the displaced will stay away from their homes and jobs. Many commercial institutions were closed down and several others were destroyed in the war.
وبعض المؤسسات تعطلت لأنه تدمرت لأنه أصابها الضرب مباشرة.
$10 مليار هي ما يحتاجه
$10 billion may help restore Lebanon to what it was prior to July 12. In addition, Lebanon sustained many human losses that cannot be compensated. We only hope that this war will be the last one in the history of Lebanon.
أن تكون هذه الحرب هي الأخيرة في تاريخ لبنان.
The Youth Office and the Hurriya Professionals Office of the Amal Movement, with the coordination of the Latamiya village, provided equipment for the Cultural and Social Clinic, which provides a treatment for more than 300 Lebanese refugee patients on a daily basis.
Just like water and food, healthcare is an urgent priority for the refugees. The Amal Movement and its institutions took care of the displaced Lebanese, providing healthcare and medical treatment for them in the Latamiya village, just like other areas. The Amal Movement's Health Office and the Hurriya Professionals Office, in coordination with the village municipality, helped to equip the Cultural and Social Clinic and provided medical teams with different specialties in general health, heart disease, and nerve damage, as well as dentistry. The clinic is witnessing incessant activity. The patients have various ailments, including normal and chronic.
Right now at 3 o'clock, we have already seen 330 patients, in addition to 60 people who have chronic illnesses. The patients' ailments vary. Some children have infections in their tonsils or chest. There are a lot of patients who are vomiting or have diarrhea. The environment has changed for the children because they have gone to the mountain areas, and the living conditions are not suitable for everyone. We have a lot of children with diarrhea and vomiting, as well as high fevers. A lot of people are experiencing high blood pressure. Our colleagues, the doctors from the villages, are all here working from their hearts in a spontaneous manner.
These amazing and spontaneous efforts to provide health care for the displaced people are being hindered by the lack of official assistance.
There are people who are helping and others who are not. We received assistance from the Ministry of Health and from the health institutions associated with the Amal movement and Hezbollah. We received help from the Red Cross. We have not received anything from the Ministry of Social Affairs, which surprised us. We are facing a social problem. We are really surprised by this since we have been working here for 10 days, and until now we haven't seen anyone from the ministry.
We are asking the Minister of Social Affairs to send us at least one representative to see what we need. We want them to know that we need medicines for nerve-damaged patients. I am a neurologist who has come here to treat patients with nerve damage, but most of the patients that I'm seeing have general health problems. They are experiencing diarrhea, vomiting, and high temperatures.
With regards to medicines for nerve damage, what do you have and what do you need? What are the shortages?
With regards to medicine for nerve disorders, we have absolutely no medicines. There are no medicines. We do not have Dianexid, which is a very light medicine. Most people want Dianexid, but it's not available.
ونظرا لانعكاسات العدوان الإسرائيلي على الحالة النفسية والعصبية
Israeli aggression has had an impact on civilians' psychological health. The clinic has doctors who specialize in nerve damage and mental disorders for children, women, and men.
بعد حالة الحرب إنه بيصير عم بيلجأوا لنا كثير أطفال ونساء كبار بالعمر.
Many old women, children, the elderly, and young men who are refugees have come to us with nerve damage and nervous breakdowns as a result of this war. In the area of Latamia, some 10 children have come to me with abnormal ailments. Even their behaviors have become abnormal. They are experiencing bouts of depression because of their situation. Some of them are experiencing a form of epilepsy. They all come here, but we can't do anything for them. We want to perform head scans, but we do not have a place to do this.
حتى بدنا نعمل انسفالوجرام للراس يعني ما عم نلاقي مطرح.
Dentists who are helping to ease the suffering of the refugees have complained about the lack of necessary equipment and medicines.
صراحة نحن عم نشوف حالات كتير العلاقة بمشاكل بالفم والأسنان. بس للأسف عم تقتصر خدمتنا بمجال طب الأسنان على الحالات الطارئة عم نفحصها.
Honestly, we are seeing a lot of patients that have mouth and teeth problems. Regrettably, our services are being reduced to just treating urgent conditions. We are diagnosing them and providing medicine, but we cannot treat them because the clinic does not have the appropriate dentist chairs or dental equipment. In addition, I want to make an appeal to all medical companies that have dentistry materials to send us donations of toothpaste or toothbrushes. The people who are living in the schools did not even take with them their basic necessities, let alone toothbrushes and toothpaste. If drug companies can donate anything that has to do with dentistry, antibiotics, or anesthesia, we would benefit a lot.
أدوية التهاب مضادات حيوية أو مسكنات كمان نستفيد منها كتير.
أهلا بكم من جديد.
In the Qatari capital Doha, the Syrian Foreign Minister Walid al-Muallim confirmed that Israel intends to expand its aggression to Syria. He warned that any initiative imposed on Lebanon without its consultation must be rejected. Mr. Muallim also said that Israel's attack on Lebanon was premeditated, politically motivated, and planned by Washington and Tel Aviv. Meanwhile, talks are underway between some Western nations and Damascus to find a solution for the Lebanese crisis. Italy's Prime Minister met today in Rome with Syria's Minister of Information.
كانت مناسبة الذكرى 61 لتأسيس الجيش السوري الاثنين.
As Syria celebrates the 61st anniversary of the establishment of its army, the Syrian president took this opportunity to lift his soldiers' morale and step up their preparations. After Israel started its military campaign in Lebanon, the Syrian army was put on high alert. Prior to that, Israeli warplanes buzzed near one of President Assad's palaces along the Syrian coast. Moreover, Israel's surveillance planes have intensified their activities along the Syrian-Lebanese borders. Also, Israel attacked and destroyed several Palestinian offices belonging to pro-Syrian groups near Damascus in 2003. During the past 3 weeks, Syria cautioned that it will respond to any Israeli ground attack in Lebanon. Syria offered to mediate the situation in Lebanon and end the crisis there. Damascus wants to show that it still plays a central role in Lebanon despite the withdrawal of its forces. However, several superpower countries did not pay attention to this Syrian offer. In fact, Syria has been accused of backing and supporting Hezbollah. According to American observers, there are some secret talks underway between the West and Syria in order to reach a political deal with Damascus. Syria is asked to stop supporting organizations which are listed by the West as terrorist organizations, and it must end its strategic alliance with Iran. In return, the West will offer Syria economic assistance and security and political pledges. U.S. President George W. Bush and British Prime Minister Tony Blair discussed the details regarding these secret talks between the West and Syria. However, there is still a possibility that the war may spiral out of control and extend to other countries, especially Syria. Several countries may be forced to take part in this war. According to Israeli sources, there are several reasons at the present time preventing Washington and Tel Aviv from attacking Syria. Some of these reasons are the situation in Iraq and the absence of an alternative leadership in case the Syrian regime collapses. Moreover, Israel wants to hold on to the occupied Syrian Golan Heights and avoid bringing this case to the bargaining table. Syria used to rely primarily on Hezbollah fighters to mount military pressure on Israel in order to drag Tel Aviv to the bargaining table. But what lies next? The United States and Israel are trying to militarily restrain Hezbollah. Palestinian organizations and political groups are losing momentum in the Palestinian-occupied territories and Syria. Therefore, Syria may lose its bargaining power with Israel regarding the Golan Heights. Despite Israeli military superiority over Syria, it is left up to Damascus whether it chooses to join the war or not. Syria wants to bring its Golan files to the bargaining table of the United Nations Security Council in the so-called new map of the Middle East.
يبقى خيارا سوريا على الرغم من تفوق الآلة العسكرية الإسرائيلية لضمان مكان لملف الجولان على طاولة مجلس الأمن في خريطة لما بات يعرف بالشرق الأوسط الجديد.
I'd like to know what Dr. Abdel Wahab thinks about the Iranian-Syrian relations and what their relationship is to what is happening in Lebanon.
من أجل تسهيل الحل حتى الآن يبدو أنه هو مجرد يعني خطوة
Asking Syria and Iran to get involved for the sake of finding a solution for what's going on in Lebanon seems to be aimed at serving Israel.
إنما انخدش فيها شيء.
Of course, Israel did not collapse in this war, but this is the first time it had performed this way in a war. Nevertheless, a price has to be paid to Syria and Iran if they're asked to do some services. So far, it does not seem that there is any proposition.
نص قدم.
To the contrary, a tough resolution was introduced to the United Nations Security Council threatening Iran with sanction if it continues uranium enrichment after August 31st. This is the first time that the international community reaches a consensus to give Iran such an ultimatum.
هذا الإنذار وبهذا الإجماع ما هو الثمن الذي يمكن أن يقدم لسوريا؟ مؤخرا في الأيام الأخيرة عاد الحديث بشكل متصاعد عن عودة.
What concessions can be given to Syria? Recently, there has been an increase in talks about bringing Syria back to Lebanon. There has been some tolerance in dealing with Syria as well. There have also been some threats and promises.
واضح إنه في اعتماد أو في
The United States and Israel are keeping the door open for Syria.
والإسرائيلي إلى اللحظة الأخيرة لاستدعاء مساعدة سورية. لكن سوريا ستساعد في كيف؟ بأن تضغط بالزر على حزب الله أن يوقف النار.
As a last resort, the United States want to bring Syria into the picture. How can Syria help? Syria can mount pressure on Hezbollah to agree to a ceasefire, pull back its fighters to the Litani River, stop launching missiles into Israel, accept the deployment of international troops, and hand over the 2 captured Israeli soldiers.
سوريا لدفع لقيام بمثل هذا الدور. لابد من أنك يعني أنت أجريت معها.
There is a reasonable way of demanding something from someone. Demands are usually preceded by rounds of talks between concerned parties. A general understanding and a foundation for cooperation must be reached prior to any deals with Syria. Secret talks between Syria and the West may have taken place in Spain. However, until now, there is no indication that Syria is ready to move in this direction.
ما في أي مؤشرات إلى أنه سوريا أصبحت جاهزة.
Leader of the Islamic Revolution, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, on Wednesday condemned Israeli brutalities in the Lebanese village of Ghana, slamming UN and the so-called supporters of human rights for their silence over the Zionist regime's crimes in Lebanon. In a message to the Muslim world, the leader said, "The Lebanon incidents have unveiled the real nature of U.S. version of human rights, revealed the sort of Middle East the White House is keen to have." Elsewhere in his remarks, Ayatollah Khamenei noted today, Hezbollah is on the front line of a sacred defense of the Muslim nations. The leader added, U.S. President Bush and his allies share a same degree of guilt in the disaster occurring in Lebanon as the Zionist regime. Ayatollah Khamenei also said Muslim nations hate the U.S. more than ever before, asserting Washington should expect a hard slap in the face and the crushing fist by the Muslim nations for its support for Israel, as well as their blatant violation of the Muslims' rights. In a fresh wave of anti-Zionist protests, Kuwaiti people gathered in a main street in the capital demanding the closure of a U.S. department store. Also in the rally were Kuwaiti journalists and children who showed support for their peers in Lebanon and the occupied Palestine. In Turkey, a host of furious ralliers in Ankara chanted death to Israel and threw eggs at the Israeli embassy building in the Turkish capital, calling for the expulsion of Israeli ambassador from Turkish soil, as well as the closure of the Zionist regime's embassy there. A group of demonstrators, meanwhile, gathered before the UN office in Ankara and condemned the silence of the United Nations over the Israeli brutalities. Back home, Iranian children gathered in front of the UN headquarters in Tehran to vent their anger over Zionist brutalities in Lebanon and Palestine.
The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. Please visit linktv.org/Mosaic for more information about these broadcasters or to view previous Mosaic programs, obtain program transcripts, or receive the weekly Mosaic Intelligence Report. Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Firedoll Foundation, the Otto Haas Charitable Trust, and by committed Link TV viewers like you. If you value this program, please send your tax-deductible contribution to Link TV, either through the website or the mailing address listed on your screen. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs which connect you to the world.